Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Comic Art Live channel. Hope everybody had a good holiday vacation. I took some time off myself and had some decent time with family. I hope everybody else tried to do the same. So we're back. We've got a collector interview tonight with William Lawson. I think last time I saw William was at OAX back in January. So let me bring him into the studio here and get things started. Hey, William, how you doing?
Hi, Bill. How are you? I'm doing great.
I am doing very well myself, my friend. So yeah, last time I think we saw each other was OAX, right? Probably.
Indeed. Well, I saw you at Heroes Con, but it was one of those. There was a
That's
lot
right.
going on. That was my
I
first
remember
Heroes
that
Con.
you wrote that. Yeah, that's you saw me, but I did not see you there. There was a
It
lot
was
of people who were at that show that I didn't.
overwhelming. That was an overwhelming show for me, just based on the sheer volume of talent. You know,
Very true. They have more artists per square feet, I think, than any other show in the country.
I believe that. I believe that.
But it makes it challenging too, right? I mean, I feel like you see the stuff getting posted to CAF after a show like that, and you realize how many people you didn't talk to, how many collectors were there, and because it's such a busy show, especially if you only have one day, or even if you only have 2 days while you're there, you don't really have a lot of time to socialize, right? I mean, you got to run around and you got to set up your sketch lists, and uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting show for certain. Very different than OAX in that regard. Where you kind of at least see everybody in the room. You could talk to them. I didn't even see you. I had no idea that I had the opportunity to say hi.
That's quite all right. I'm just observant, and sometimes I'm in the background, whether I want to be or not. It's fine.
I get it. I get it. I see still you have your OA Expo bag behind you on the floor. I
Oh,
see.
yeah, it's in the corner. I keep a lot of those things just stored around the room in general. This is one of the rooms, one. So I'm lucky enough to have several, but I actually think I had some stuff in there I pulled out tonight that found some sketch cards that weren't used.
Oh, good,
Believe
good.
it or
Yeah,
not. So,
I still have a few left over myself. I'm not sure what I'm going to do to them. I'll probably give them out to artists so that they can make use of them. Lee Harmon
that's
just mentioned that he enjoyed getting to meet you at OAX, so that's
all right.
there were-
Absolutely. It was great meeting everyone there. That was the only thing that happened, I believe, for me there. I met fellow collectors. Um, at one point, it seemed like essentially I'd even just given up on meeting artists in general. Now, one reason being, at some point, I realized every person I'd talked to on the internet about comic art over the last 5 years was in one place at one time, for the most part.
Mhm.
And the artists, I know where they're going to be. That was kind of at some point my mentality is I know how to find the artists. I may never get a chance to even discuss art with these guys again, just as a thought. So I kind of ended up blowing off a lot of artists and dealing more with fans and
Mhm.
friends more than anything. And I figure, you know, this year will be different. This year
Cool.
will be different because I've met some of those individuals in advance.
Yeah, awesome. Mike B says I met him at OX too, and Tim Guerrero said, "Hey, I know Tim had mentioned that he was going to pop in tonight since he wondered why it took so long for you to get on the channel. Why is that, William?
Well, I've been, but my first piece of art that I got was 1985, and I had a very large collection, which then disappeared for a variety of reasons. All good in the long run, and I just started over again in 2018, actually. So that's why I haven't really been active at all, even though I've been in the community for so long. I took basically a 10-year leave of absence, for lack of a better term. I wouldn't even come to your site simply because it would almost break my heart that I
So
no longer.
you're saying you were in it from '85 until about '08, and then
Yes. Yeah. And then it all went at one time, basically, for a variety of reasons. So,
but
good reasons, but,
but
it hurt.
that's 23 years in the hobby before taking 10 years off. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
what was your
Yeah.
first art purchase in '85?
The very first art purchase that I can ever remember, was a small sketch that I wasn't sure was real by Charles Schultz. And that didn't last long because everybody kept telling me it was a fake. And so I learned my lesson very quickly that I had actually bought something that wasn't real.
Mhm.
So that was the first thing I was gifted, though, was by Walter Simonson, a Thor head sketch, which is the reason I immediately stopped collecting comic art in general, was I didn't think anyone sold it.
Mhm.
I wrote to him very repeatedly right at the beginning of his Thor run, which was, fantastic. But at the same time, he was editing, writing titles, drawing some, doing a lot of different things then. And he actually took the time to write me back. And I talked a lot of art questions and etc. The 13-year-old mind, 14-year-old mind. And he sent me a head sketch that I have to this day of my little smirking, smiling Thor, who still is somewhere. Let me see. I got to figure out how to do it. He's over there on the wall up top. Um, but I still have that fella. And, but that basically for the next 5 to 10 years, I really didn't buy any art because I didn't think artists sold it.
Mhm. Well, that's
True
so
story.
so
I
so what
was in
is
West Virginia as well, so cons weren't exactly every 10 feet or so. It was a
no.
very isolated community of collecting that I was in.
Yeah. So you got that first piece, then you had 10 years off after that, and then you even had another 10 years off. So
Oh, yeah, I did um I did periods where I would just find the things I wanted. I did a lot of it on eBay in the very early days. Superman, I had things like I bought the Marvel Team Up 141 cover prelim off of eBay.
mhm.
On one side and on the reverse of it was a black costume Spider-Man by Arthur Adams. Full pencils on one side, fully inked on the other. Um, Things along those lines that I was thinking of buying at that time. I bought a Kaluta Superman 400 splash. I had Mignola Rocket Raccoon pages. I bought the things that I loved. And I love the word you used to describe me, eclectic, because my art taste is all over the place and always has been. And that will never change. There's no single character that does it. There's no single company that does it. There's a lot of variety to be had in this hobby. And I embrace every single bit of it from, Windsor McKay to the guy I saw making art with bubble gum
Oh,
at
the bubblegum wrappers, yeah, heroes.
yeah. So I love the entirety of this field with all of my art. And,
Now so they didn't have a lot of conventions in West Virginia,
no,
but comics they must have had, right? Because you wouldn't
yes,
have had an
yes.
affinity for the artists and creators if you weren't able to pick up books. So
My collection was rather legendary. I was sort of obsessive. My mom taught me to read using them. And then once she found out those weren't, hey, Robert, that my mom actually taught me to read using them. And then they advanced me or wanted to advance me in school, which was just a plot to get you away from your friends. It's, at least to me, that's what I saw that as. And it was just because of reading. And my mom realized that. And then she encouraged it, which meant buy everyone you can and read everyone you can. And I did. And so by the time I was 32, I used all my bartending money and things along those lines, jobs I had done. I had basically every Marvel and DC superhero, sci-fi, or horror comic from like 62 to 2000. And I had done that all basically pre-internet. I seriously, it was an amazing thing. I had 5 rooms in my house for comics. It was and I was a condition freak as well. But I just kind of hoarded everything so that I made sure that I had all of the Neil Adams Tomahawk covers. I made sure, there was a lot of little bits and pieces of things that I realized I just need them all. And I was very fortunate. We had a store that would get a wall of comics in like once a month in a giant truck. and I would kind of stash all the stuff I wanted on the bottom. I mean, I bought All-Star comics from this place, Captain America comics from this place, Golden Age books in the 70s and 80s for 20 cents a piece. And I just kind of hoarded all of them, traded them. I remember phone auctions and stuff, having my mom try to do it for me because my mom was very supportive. And so all of those comics kind of led into the art, sort of, because how can you read comics without not loving what you see and the characters and these sorts of things? So to me, it was just a natural transition to actually go from things there's several thousand copies of to things there are one of. Well,
Exactly.
back then there was one of.
So when you wrote Walt Simonson, was that the one and only time you ever wrote an artist hoping to get a sketch, or was
Yes.
this something? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And but I had done this over, I mean, I had worked at that for probably a year and a half. Everyone else I sent hate mail to probably at that time. Bill Sienkiewicz really destroyed my New Mutants concepts, but also taught me to appreciate art in a level that I wasn't ready for yet. You know, as a teenage kid, I wasn't ready for that level of artistic expression by somebody who a couple years earlier, I had just fallen in love with ghosting Neil Adams and rampaging Hawk on those Moon Knight stories. And then to see just this transition and change, and when that's not the guy I knew at all. And it was just such a shock to me that I decided it wasn't, you know, somebody had to let him know that what he was doing sucked.
I'm sure he's made that there too.
Oh yeah, I've apologized repeatedly, fear not. But you know, I was very thankful for that education that I got along the way, you know, because I've seen all of it. Whether or not I was actively buying during those times, I still had a very large collection pieced out over time. Like the first Alex Ross piece I had was from Terminator: The Burning Earth, his first issue, the last page of the first issue. Even I got that at an auction because someone had it labeled as Alex Russ, and it was, I just remember, save keywords for misspelled names, things like that. These silly little tricks that would lead to gems on occasion, you know. So. But I can't read anybody's comments. Sorry. So I'm going to get shiny for a second. Daniel Scott. Yeah, that's the gentleman with the rappers. He was fantastic. And yes, I will get that Bernie Wrightson Smith one day. I mean, Barry Windsor Smith. I say that all the time. The Barry Windsor Smith page. Absolutely. Me too.
We all want to get one of those.
It's one of the things I've desired since I was a youth. And has always been beyond my means. And now I believe if I group enough sources, I can hopefully source one of those at some point in the near future. And, you know, I'm probably one of the largest budget collectors you could imagine. Basically, I sell the comics I still have laying around to buy art.
How many rooms do you have left?
Oh, I've got about 120 long boxes in the basement currently. And that's what's left. And I've been selling constantly since 2000. And I really haven't bought anything since then either. Just the glut of the 90s when the comic shops were going out of business and such. Bartending was, you know, a regular thing. I had cash. And you could go into these stores that were closing their doors because they had just bought 500 copies of X-Force #1 with 5 cards in the back. So all these places were going out of business. So hi, everybody. In general, it just sort of turned into, I have way too many of these things. And then I just sold the things that I thought were worth money. And then there were a bunch of things that turned into, you know, and my friends would just get a hold of me and say, hey, do you have this? And I'd be like, yeah, I got like 50 of them. They're like, oh God, save them for me. And I'm like, okay. So I would. And it just sort of, they just kept coming to me, you know? And so I would give them out. I gave away an entire long box of Venom Lethal Protector #1s for Halloween one year. Every kid got one because I'd bought a case of them or something in one of those stores. And so I've always just been surrounded by this in its entirety. And it's been encouraged in my life. So I stay with it.
Well, very cool. So in the when you got back into collecting in the 90s before you had that second 10-year off, I mean, what was your focus as far as
At that point in time, I was trying to actually finish up everything that I did not have to that point. After buying a bunch of the stores at that point, probably around 95 is when I started doing that, 93, 94, 95, somewhere in those era. And then I just kind of kept those things. The next wave of like art really was getting rid of those books and buying art and beginning my life, basically starting businesses and such with the money from those things. So the books eventually disappeared into other avenues and ventures that no longer exist and such. So a lot of that walked away. And then my art was always kind of stayed with me. And then I parted with that for another reason as well.
But at that time, any focus on any particular creators, or was it across the board? Back to the eclectic
It's
thing.
everything. It has always been the entirety of this field. And there's really no other way I can say that, Bill. I mean, it's from Yellow Kid to, something I read downstairs the other night that scared me that sadly Ed Piskor had done. I picked up an issue of Red Room and just was... So I'm a fan of the entirety of sequential storytelling also is really a big deal to me. I've always enjoyed that. I've always found that to be the heart of the matter. The image movement of the 90s and such with splash, 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 big images created a lot of single image collectors. They're very easy to display. They look good. Some of them often tell the entire story in one image, but sometimes they don't. But sequential storytelling, the way it works, is just, to me, the height of this art form. And what goes back to cave walls, even, it goes all the way back to that. And to me, it's a very important aspect that a lot of people, I think, are kind of dismissing a little bit. And newer collectors, I believe, are very, very single image oriented, leaving behind a lot of this sequential storytelling pages that I think are important. That's one of the things I think that's been happening.
So what, after you had your time off, starting new businesses and those sorts of things, what brought you back in 2018?
The first picture.
Yeah.
You're going to share. The very first picture you're going to share.
Oh, wow. You show something early. We usually save looking at art until later, but why not?
That's quite all right. But what I was going to say is you just asked me a question, and the very answer is the first thing is literally the first image. Sitting at my house one night at about 3 a.m, I was very depressed. I had been watching videos of my mother who had passed, and I was feeling very down. And I accidentally opened Comic Art Fans, which is something I did not do because, like I say, it actually got me upset. And then I hit click and close. And literally while the screen is reducing, in one of the small thumbnails that are on the right-hand side of I see this image as it's getting smaller. And I lost my mind. Whoa, what was that? And I began looking, and I didn't know the artist's name. Literally, I had dropped completely out of comics 2, 3, 4 months before his Wolverine work. So I didn't even know who he was. And I saw this image as it was reducing, and I literally became obsessed with finding out who that artist is, simply because I've always There's no other way for me to say this. I've dreamt in this man's art style my entire life. And when I saw that, it completely like made my brain explode that there was no other option than to find out who this was. And it took a while because I didn't even know it was Thanos. I just had to look and look and look and look. And eventually I did find it, and it was for sale, and it was very expensive. And I was patient and waited and waited and waited. And eventually it came to me years later at a Comic Link auction, as a matter of fact, is where I acquired this one. And it's so strong an image. It is so dark. But to see that much pain and seeing Thanos actually start at home, which is what Death wanted in this point, instead of taking half, to prove your love, I need you to start at home. So that is why you may see an infant on the ground in a pool of blood, because she wanted his children. So the amount of love that is conveyed in just that, it's a completely, I don't know the correct word. It is, I'm going to say it's has a duality where there is so much love shown in a series of so much horror at the exact same time. That to me, it is just like one of the most striking images I had ever seen in a comic book. And that's how it started, Bill.
So
that's exactly
just seeing this, but you didn't buy it, but this inspired you to start collecting again, and then
yes.
and eventually ended up with this piece. But it was the first
this
piece
was the who is this? Who is this?
Yeah.
And then when I began to see his other work, I completely and utterly, essentially lost my mind, because this was the guy I dreamt. Like I say, there's no other real way for me to say it other than I dreamt very often in his art style, the splashes of color, whether I'm told I can see them or not, etc. I've always had wanted someone to do exactly what he does with heavy cross hatching and mixing color and mixing wash tones all on the same page. I know this is a very time consuming process, which limits output and such in today's world, but the effects are, and the outcome is without question.
No, it's
Completely.
Simone Bianchi's amazing. Even back then, his style stood out. He just had a very, there's you can see some influences in his style to like Sergio Tappi and a few other artists. But I mean,
yes.
he just when he hit the scene, I knew. I think the first time I went to San Diego Comic-Con when he was going to be there, I mean, he was one of the first artists that I hit up to get a sketch from. Because
wow.
he was so unique. I don't have it anymore. I wish I did. I got a Wolverine. That would have been, I don't even know, like 09, sometime around there. Okay. But and that was early enough where he didn't have really his own booth or whatnot. It was just him sitting in a valley when San Diego still had him. So yes. Robert Burns said the same thing first time he saw his work.
That Seven Soldiers work of his. I actually have a single page from that series that it was in the cut, and it didn't make the cut today. So, but the art in those, just the details in some of those, when you look and see a skull in the pommel of a sword in a tiny panel, or whiskers on a guy's face, it's just the level of detail and expertise and skill in every single panel is beyond belief unless you see it in your hand, from what I've seen.
Now, is this on 11 by 17?
This is actually, I believe, slightly larger than that. I believe it's a 13 by 18 with an 11 by 17 image area. So the image area is actually the size of a full sheet. But so that one's actually, many of his things come in very odd sizes. Some of them are huge, some of them are small, some of them are small on large boards. Basically it's like if you give this guy something, he's going to draw on it, which I love.
So when was the first time you got to meet him?
The first time I met him was at New York Comic Con in 2018. I went for specifically the Marvel Masterpieces
Mhm.
release party, because I knew he was coming to the States, and that was his first visit here in, I believe, forever or quite some time. And I didn't know whether I would have another opportunity. And I was lucky enough to be in a position that uh, basically a very ugly incident had occurred, and my marriage had ended, and I was very much in a dark spot. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, you know what you need? You need art." And her father was an artist, and I've known her a long time. Um, and so she literally got me to Baltimore Comic Con, and then got me to New York Comic Con to ensure that I met him on a train going up to see her in Connecticut and spend time with her. And so if it weren't for Hillary Rice, thank you, Hillary, um, I probably wouldn't be where I am today in any of this, because that really opened my eyes and made me realize just do what you want to do. And that's the only thing that matters in this world. And quick story. I know I talk a lot, Bill.
Right. Makes it easy
First
for
night, first night I'm at her house. I'm outside. The phone rings. It's an iPhone. They all sound the same. I go over to answer the phone, and I look down, and there's this name on the phone. And I'm like, that's odd. I've never seen that name anywhere than one place. And I'm like, hey, Hillary, some guy named Topher just called you. And she's like, Topher? And I'm like, yeah, it says Topher Rothko. And she goes, oh, she's all excited because this is one of her friends since childhood. Her and her dad were contemporaries, etc. And I'm just like blown away that I'm like, are you serious? You know, to see Rothko, the name Rothko, right there in front of me on a trip where I'm trying to decide whether all I want to do is art with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like sign after sign after sign on that trip, and meeting Simone and being able to see how afraid I made everyone. Just kidding. I can be very passionate when I talk about art. I use my hands. I've never seen a picture of me at an artist table not doing this, something along those lines.
You were doing that on the floor at OAX. I remember. I was like, take it to a table, man.
I am
I remember that.
I am all over the place sometimes. I apologize for that, and I'm working on it.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think
I'm a
we're all
high
in it because we're passionate about the art.
yeah,
Some are more gestural than others, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
And meeting him during that trip was really fantastic, and solidified that it was important for me to find not only artists I love, but people I loved. There's a great deal of artists. There usually aren't a great deal of people I love, and I'm working on loving more by meeting more. So I was very reclusive for a long time with cons, Bill. It's one of the reasons I didn't get to cons. I was a little bit PTSD struck from some of my experiences in the military. Actually, I was very PTSD struck. So crowds did not work, and I'd try one here and there, and it would just be very uncomfortable, usually crowd wise and such in those days. And so I just that was another one of the reasons I eventually just stopped altogether, was lack of immersing yourself anywhere near the environment tends to pull you out of it, which is one of the reasons I've made sure I've been going to conventions this year. I've been going to try to do as many things as I can to be seen and to meet artists and to meet friends and to talk to all of the people. And, it's really great. And that's why I loved OAX. I mean, that was absolutely life-changing in my opinion, because I've never felt that much of fellowship around art specifically, comic art specifically. It gave me hope for a lot of things. It gave me all of these ideas for things I saw. I saw problems there, which things I didn't like around, nothing bad on you, Bill. Talking about like things like differences in definitions of art, things that I think maybe we might want to, as a community, begin to standardize. somehow, some way. Actually insisting on inclusion of markings on the back being disclosed. Little things that are very kind of up in the air with every purchase sometimes, it seems. Whether there are separate pencils, separate inks, whether we should have a term for these types of pages instead of, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying by that, but I really think that would help.
What's that?
I really think that would help if everybody's speaking the same language. A cover is a cover.
Yeah. Well, Anthony makes up his own language, right? When he, and that's all right. Kazra says OAX 2025 will be more like the two towers from the Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. All right. That's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a good time. I got my tickets. I shall never miss another one of those as long as I live.
Well, it will be an annual affair. I can guarantee you that. Stinger says he can't wait for the Battle of Helm's Deep. All right. Thanks, Kazra, for getting the Lord of the Rings train going here. He is Kazra's a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
As am I. Which, Simonson and Vest did work on the Bakshi flick. Things like that. A lot of people don't know a lot of those things, and it's good to, just have Gray Morrow worked on that. Things along those lines. Yep.
Morrow's one of those guys I've never been able to pick up anything.
Well, The Hobbit. I'm specifically
for a long time.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing is there's so much variety of art, and there's so many artists that I refuse to have a niche because I don't think it should be allowed. I see people who just collect one character, and that's their thing, and I appreciate it and I respect it, but at some point in time I would get tired of looking at the same individual. I'm very, as Bill Cox described me, eclectic. Sticking with it.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, I went through my X-Men phase and my Thor phase of buying, original art, and now I think I'm more diverse. Once you kind of get the pieces that you feel like are hard to top,
yes.
And you still love collecting, you kind of have to open your mind and just look for different things, right? Whether it's new talent or artists that have been out there in the past that you never picked anything up by.
They will show themselves to you whether you wish it or not. Mm-hmm. Is the way I see it. When you're walking by a con, there will be the thing that stops you in your tracks. That person exists, and like I say, the very first con that I went to was that Baltimore Comic-Con on the way to New York Comic-Con in 2018. And that was when I walked by and Jeremy Bastian was the guy that did it. Just breaks, stop. I looked at every single thing he had on his table before I said a word, which you can tell how rare that is. And so I just kind of gushed on him for a while, realized the obvious Windsor McKay sorts of things that were going on. And that's my patron piece there. That it's the only patron piece that I had. I was going to put another one up, but I ended up pulling that one down. There's plenty of these on my site. I get one of these a month. This is just absurd when you consider that the size of what you're looking at is about 2 inches by 3 inches. And there is nothing there on the white. That is nothing but empty space. This is an absolute school lesson as far, this is a lesson in hatching as far as I am concerned, and depth building and development. This is a monthly reward, and it's just, it makes your jaw drop when these things come in once a month. And now, granted, I'm very honest, not all of them are this level of detail or this size or this work, but they are all equally gorgeous and astounding, and from another era in many ways, in my mind.
I love Jeremy's. I've never owned anything by him. I've always wanted to pick something up.
Well, tell you what, Bill.
One of these days, right? I know he's got a Patreon. I know you were just mentioning that. I was just Googling it so I could get it in.
Oh, man, did I get lucky. I'm okay. And since that day, which was 2018, it was it was 5 o'clock in the morning. All three Indiana Jones films were on Netflix at the same time. So I was up at 5 a.m. to watch all of them and just have a good day. Creating my own energy and good times at that point. And I saw the only post I've ever seen on Facebook ever in my life from Jeremy Bastion that there was a spot open on his Patreon. And I immediately sent something and said, yes, me, I'll take it. And I noticed that, like, 15 minutes later, there were like 74 people hating me. Something to that, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So I realized just how lucky I got when I jumped on that, because literally it's because of Indiana Jones. That's all there is to it. So thanks, Indy. And I've been on that ever since. So once a month, I get a beautiful print from him of some sort. Some of these are just astonishing. I like to gift them to people because generally I don't hang prints rule in general, but I do hang some, and I've kept many of his that are just completely next level. And the fact that he only produces like 15 of each of these prints makes them actually even hard to find, And so he is, and as far as I know, I believe that. That's what I'm saying. This man is he's a workhorse too. When he does work, he's laying it down. And what I love most about this guy is his utter fearlessness. Just if you go back and look at Cursed Pirate Girl, the very first pages,
Oh yeah.
You can see a guy just, okay, I'm just going to start doing it. And absolutely 100%, you get to actually watch him grow through the series as an artist into just the next level beauty that exists, So.
Oh, I did. Yeah, no, his work is breathtaking, and usually a little on the smaller side, but the amount of detail that he packs into every illustration is just incredible.
Some of the originals, he's told me that some of the originals for some of the Cursed Pirate Girl pages, which you've seen, aren't large. Some of the originals are smaller than the printed page. It's literally, I bought a jeweler's loop because of him. Because it's just to see the actual just fine penmanship, and like in this one especially, just the use of negative space, just the knowledge of never touching that space. And it's just, to me, just mind-boggling, one direction at a time on this piece in particular.
Yeah, it's like an engraving practically, but somebody should do a documentary about Jeremy and his techniques, right?
I've seen some of the process. I have the one published page from him from Cursed Pirate Girl that I was also very fortunate to get through him, because he understood just how obsessed I was with his work and how much I love it, how much I tell every human being I meet about it in general, simply because I really think it is that good. And it's a limited field that get to see it due to the fact that there's only really the one series of opus level that he's working on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we can just start looking at artwork, since we've already begun looking at artwork. Is that all right with you?
Oh yeah, I'm a boring guy. Don't worry. Let's get to the good stuff, right?
But I saw somebody ask, it looks like you have some Monet pieces on the wall behind you, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm sure. Okay, up here I have the Defenders #2 cover above me. That one's up there. That was a variant cover to the 2017-18 series. It was all very Netflix oriented, and that was kind of legitimately what you see there was my first cover. So my very first cover I ever truly owned was a Defenders cover by Simone. And I was not speaking about that one tonight, simply because, like I said, oh, wait a minute, maybe I am. Um,
Well, you
it's
are
a it's actually, like I say, it was my very first cover I ever had. It has all of everything I love about this man's art in one place. It has his ink work, it has his design work, it has his negative space usage, it has his glowing orb of an iron fist, it has his multiple uses of color with like blue washes, brown washes, green washes, and then basically a red acrylic front daredevil that just literally explodes off of the page, and a very subtle Jessica Jones in the back that's just kind of floating there. And it literally, when I looked at it, it's got every single aspect of what I believe he can do well. He can do anything well, be it with pencils, inks, acrylics, just, next level things. That's another one of the reasons I decided to start collecting them was after the great Snoopy debacle of whatever that year that was, 1980, whatever it was. I decided I should probably buy art that is so damn good no one can ever fake it. That was kind of one that there is so much skill level involved in that it's impossible to genuinely fake, as far as I'm concerned. One of my favorite things about this one is if you've ever seen Simone's signature, it's very distinctive, with a big looping S. And if you follow from his end of his club there, his Billy Club, and loop around, it is basically his exact S of his signature. Which I just kind of always struck me as an interesting little aside, that was the way that the Billy Club actually was moving, was in the direction, the entirety of his S signature, which I believe I may have cut off on that scan for just closeness, which I'm sure you'll see it eventually. I do have some of his signatures on there. And the design on this, how I got this was I saw it on eBay in Europe. And that was another thing I did very early, is I made sure I did a lot of European searches for his work, because I figure that's where it's going to be. And this was for sale, and I had lost it. So I sent the guy a message and said, "Hey, I think that's in the wrong home. Why don't you sell it to me?" And he was like, nah, this is what it is. It's going here. I'm like, okay, I understand. But if you ever think about selling it, let me know. And 2 months later, I got the email requesting that I buy it from him, because he had broken his leg in an accident. And I warned him.
You didn't arrange the broken leg, though, right?
Not whatsoever. I can't get to Europe that easily anymore. Just kidding. Seriously. But the gentleman was injured. He needed money for medical bills immediately. And so I said, absolutely, I will gladly take this off your hands. And it, from that moment forward, I knew this is in its forever home from day one. It was that one, and I just absolutely love this page, because it also reminds me of that period of those Netflix shows that were, in my opinion, the highlight of anything Marvel has done on video ever, in my opinion.
I like that. Brent said you pulled a Tanya Harding on him.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
William Watson.
You guys are horrible to think I would do that just because I admitted it live on TV. Anyway.
Jason calls it a Jersey kiss.
Indeed. It was, there's nothing wrong with, it was an accident. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, yeah, the gentleman was in something bad, so I ended up getting lucky due to someone else's misfortune.
Well, it just tells you that it's never a bad thing to let people know you're interested in something.
Yes, indeed. That is a fact.
Even if it's not for sale at some point, it could be. And if you've asked,
many people I reached out to early in the days of looking for the Simone stuff, things weren't for sale. And I just made it very well known that this is what I'm looking for. Is this, please get a hold of me. And I can honestly say that every single person that I reached out to probably got a hold of me almost immediately when something was offered for sale or before it was offered for sale and offered it to me, which just, makes your little heart pitter patter. When people go out of their way to be good to you in any field, that's to some people competitive,
Right. Yeah.
So.
So is that the only Bianchi on the wall?
Well, there's a Wolverine over here. That's what you did is you caught me mid framing, where this wall on the side is getting 5 Bianchi pieces spread out in like a die pattern with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got them framed and they're just kind of lined up over there. But I think that's the only thing actually that's in this room on the wall. There are others, but I'm only in this room. So I've been told Charnel, for those of you who have ever seen me, the happy blonde with me is Charnel, and I am in this room. So.
Well, that worked out good. Dave said that Dave Kopecki said that when you guys met, he sold you some Bianchi pages.
Absolutely. And he was actually the first page I think I bought from Bianchi was off of him. Actually, I believe my very first page was off of Dave, which I eventually sold to Matt, which he eventually sold to me back, and I have it again. So that's nice. But yeah, that's basically how me and Dave became friends. And exactly what he's saying there. He told me, I was asking him about advice at that time because I'd been out of the game for a very, very, very long time. And I asked him for advice. And what he said right there is he said, go big or go home. So instead of just looking for the pieces I could afford, I just tried to buy nothing but things I couldn't afford. And there's no other way for me to say it, because that's the only way to go big is to go beyond.
Extend yourself.
And I pushed myself as hard as I could, because then I'd have to get rid of comics to cover these things. But it was always within my ability. I just need help to do these things usually. So, and now I have a helpful person that helps me, with these things. But Dave told me right then and there, because he had a cover that I adored, actually. And it was just, that was one of the things that was out of my range. And this was probably right about the time that the other Bianchi cover came back up. The Defenders cover came back up, and I was in decision-making mode because I was being told no by someone, and everything in my head was telling me yes. So I just went ahead and said yes because Dave told me to. And I didn't stop for a while. And I didn't stop with Bianchi's for a while. I actually had 40 plus at one time. The goal actually was they were in Europe, and I knew that if I ever wanted them, they had to be a lot closer to me. So if I can get them here, then they're on this continent at least.
Mm-hmm.
And, between friends, and I figure, things travel back and forth between these continents all the time. But if it's actually in the country and I have to trade it off to somebody, I usually know where that is and can track down a lot easier than someone, say, in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I had to do some of those things, and which is why I got a page from Dave and got rid of the page and then reacquired the page. So
that's interesting, and that's true. I think Simone's work was kind of hard to get early on.
It took a lot of sourcing. A lot of sourcing, a lot of Italian emails, but it really, really ended up working out basically just due to the kindness of people in the community on both continents. And I was just very fortunate to get what I got when I got it, I believe, in many ways too.
Well, you don't have 40 pieces now, do you?
Oh no, I think I'm in the 30s now.
Okay, good.
I'm down into the 30s.
You're controlling those impulses.
I'm bringing it down a notch. Well, I've been told there are only so many paintings by the same artist that we should have on the walls, meaning that the 7 that I had planned on were too many. So I'm cutting it back to, 14. Dead serious. I'm going to double it. You'll see.
Why not?
No,
Push your luck, Gary.
I just have been diversifying my collection very, very easily by moving just a few of them. It's been allowing me to do the other thing that I like to do, which is to meet up with artists and buy stacks of pages or groups of pages from them, so that when I do feel a need to part with one of them, I never feel guilty or bad, because I have the better of the two that I like, so to speak. It's always just one of those things where I can usually, like I say, I'm a very budget buyer. So when I can get somebody to actually sell me 10, 15, 20 pages for a reasonable rate, I usually go for it. So, which I've been able to do a few times now.
There is nothing wrong with that. Tim Guerrero wanted to know if you've ever bought a complete book.
No, I have not. No, I have not. That's a commitment, and I believe something that it would have to be a very specific book, and any of the very specific books it would have to be would be so far beyond my means it wouldn't matter. But I would love to have like a complete original, I would like to have a complete original, anything from the 70s or 80s, most likely from Marvel. Anything would be a phenomenal thing to have, and I don't even know how many of those still exist. In that regard. And then later on, I know people began to sell entire books, and then there's an entire subgenre of collectors that do that as well. But like I say, that's just probably a little bit too far out of my wheelhouse currently.
I've never owned a complete story either, so nothing like that.
That's a big deal, as far as I'm concerned.
That's a commitment. That's like buying a car.
Guys that put together a page at a time, and are out there looking for that one page, just that one page. And I just feel so bad for those guys, really, at times, because all of the effort going into that to try to find something that may not even exist, that may have been thrown out 20 years ago or 40 years ago at this point. So, but Archie's story, ding, there we go. Thank you, Marcus. I've seen it. I won't lie. I've looked at a couple of the 3 and 5 pagers real cheap, because
that he says that. I know Maureen bought a complete 5-page story from the last Comic Art Live, or maybe it was the one in November. I can't remember. So we actually own a complete story within the family. And it's an Archie.
And those are doable. Yeah, those are doable. I won't lie. I hate to tell people what I'm eyeing, because then they disappear. But there's, I think, like a neat little 5-page Slylock Fox thing on eBay for around $300 that I thought was very reasonable for a 1957 story, something along those lines. And to me, little things like that. Charnel recently has said she wanted to see a little bit more cartoon characters. She wants a little bit more of her nostalgia mixed in with mine as we're buying pieces. So I'm like, okay. So Mighty Mouse, I won a heritage auction a couple weeks ago for a 1947 Mighty Mouse page that I just loved and adored. And so that is kind of, she sees that kind of more as, okay, now let's go find Scooby-Doo. There is a Richie Rich cover that I'm going to eventually have to try to find, that is literally the only cover she remembered as a child, and we went and found it. And, it's that one. So at some point in time, I'm going to look up all the information on that and see if I can find one of those elusive pieces,
Oh, yeah. Well, I talk about all the time that, collecting original art, be it comic book or really any kind of art, you can share with your family, right? And your friend.
Absolutely.
It's something that, you can't do that with all forms of pop culture collectibles, right? But
yes.
But art is very different, and it's something
indeed it is.
We can appreciate.
I get a lot of different reactions from visitors to the house. The most universal of all is basically is Jeremy's work. Is universally just some people are a little bit slow to like beautiful art of men in tights, so to speak. You know, no, there's there's just some barriers that we still haven't overcome, no matter how many movies we show these people.
Mm.
And so I just try to show everybody all of those, and those generally, the more base pieces tend to go over better. So one of the things I think it'll be easier to introduce my friends to it is through things that they've seen, that they're a little bit more comfortable with. Some of them are a little bit more comfortable with the Batman Adventures things, or a little bit more comfortable with the Yogi Bear, or something along those lines, and then they begin to accept it a little bit more, it seems. But
what's the piece of art that greets people when they come through the front door?
Well, very soon it's going to be the Tuskers double page spread I picked up from Robert Berman. That was the piece that she was waiting on to complete the home, I'm told. It's literally, it'll be there. There's only one wall that won't get sun, so that's the one it has to be on. So it won't be directly in front, but it will be the only piece of art in that area. But if you look through, I've got there's art all over the house. That's the only way to say it. There's art everywhere because I'm eclectic, and if I see something I like and I can afford it and I believe it is reasonable, I will buy it pretty much every time, because it's the only thing really in this world that's ever moved me to that degree. It's been art and the appreciation of mankind to be able to do that. I can't, because I can't. I've tried. I suck. I can't do any. And I've practiced, and I won't say I suck, but it's been a long time since I tried any of it truly.
Sure.
And but to see some of the things that these people were able to create is just from another world. It's just to see the human hands can still do these things. It's not all old world craftsmanship. That skill and craftsmanship and love for the art is still available and visible in their works themselves.
Yeah, amen. So why don't we start looking at, I mentioned this 10 minutes ago, but we should start looking at some art.
Because this guy won't shut up. I'm telling you.
I don't think looking at art's going to do that either, but
all right.
We've got
this one right here. Okay. This one was an important one for me to put up early after the first one that I saw that brought me back. This was important early because Matt Slay was the second person I walked by whose work I enjoyed when I got back into the hobby. And as I walked by his stuff, I kind of really enjoyed what I saw and decided at some point I wanted something from that guy. So the next year was literally my first date with Charnel was at Baltimore Comic-Con 2019. So I just figured I'd throw her into the fire. And so our first date was there, and this was from that art auction. This was my first art auction that I had ever participated in. It was the day I got to finally meet Alex Johnson, who I'd talked to forever on the internet. And I've always loved this character because a friend had introduced me to this back a long time ago. And when I saw this piece, it's hard to make out the smoke actually showing up against the wall, the negative space of the bricks and the shadow. It just completely flowed to me and made me feel immediately like I was in a noir movie, just by looking at the art and the shading and things. And I just thought it was a very strong image. I just loved a lot of things about it. And this was really, yes, this is Black Sad. It's my first purchase ever in a comic art auction, believe it or not. And it's owned to this day. And Matt is a absolutely fantastic artist. Recently, he's been writing too. I know that. One of the things, real quick, I wanted to say about Matt, just very quickly. I love his wash tones, but he's very good with color as well. But I particularly love his horror art. his horror art is absolutely fantastic. The book that he just put out was called Patchwork Ends. I know it's sold out. I'm pretty sure it's going to head to a second printing. It's an anthology horror series. Patchwork Ends First Street was the name of it. And within it, there is just like a 12-page horror story that is the single scariest comic book horror story I've ever read in my entire life. And it's almost like I'll guarantee that, because I tell everyone that I know that likes horror comics to read this immediately, and they can't find it. So I have to loan them my copy. And then I have to track them down and get it back. So come on, Matt, if you're here, please put out a second printing of that. But there's just a single story in there that's really, really fantastic. But this piece in and of itself was just the one realistically that I was very happy I was able to afford. I had a set budget going into that. And this was basically one of two pieces that I got at the auction. And yes, that was the year that Wanyo attended. Indeed, it was. And which was fantastic, in and of itself, just getting to meet him as well. Line was a little long, but it was a good time. And this just literally, one of my favorite things about this is the negative space bricking in the back. The way it just completely, for some reason, takes this piece to another level for me, in addition to the smoke kind of trailing up as well.
Well, it's really nice. And I know the next piece is actually on your wall too. At least it looked like it. So I'm going to just flip over to that.
Oh, yeah. This is Ariel Jesus Colon cover to Shazam #1. So this was the 1 for 50 variant cover that came out 2023, as a matter of fact. The 1 million or 1 billion or whatever, something along those lines. This to me is just absolutely, this was one of the ones, the second I saw it, I sent him a message please, if this is for sale, let me know. It had so much nostalgia in it for me, because it immediately pops that Saturday Evening Post feel to me of the Rockwell covers, the playfulness of it, the concept of playing fetch with a T-Rex, the absolutely beautifully illustrated background. It can just suck you right into it. And it's just, to me, so many things that I absolutely love about comic art, between the balance, and this guy's respect for the art form is absolutely amazing. And the gold, everywhere you see gold on this piece, it shines and shines, because that is gilt. It is gold, and it shines in the right light. You have to catch it in the right light, but when you do, it just explodes off of the page. But and this is oil on a masonite board, and it is framed on the wall, which, because the boy, this was one of the ones that my son Benjamin, right? So I had, his favorite character was Shazam, and we'd been looking, so I knew this was the one. And I was going to hang it in his house. I was going to hang it in his room, and he said no, that should be where everyone can see it. And that just, like, you talk about something that's fantastic. Hearing a kid say that he wants everyone to see the art is one of those raise 'em right moments, I think, in a lot of ways. But Ariel's work is just absolutely astonishing. I know he's going to be doing some Green Lantern work, I believe, soon. But this one in general just completely captured me the second I saw it. Saliva not included. I wasn't a fan of the saliva, but I know it's necessary.
Yeah, I like Ariel's work a lot too. There's a few pieces of their work on CAF, maybe like 50 or so, but a very solid painter. That's
Absolutely. One of those up and comers, I like to say. Oh, this beauty. This was the first piece of art that was delivered after Charnel and I got together, and this is the piece that solidified our relationship. Because I'm telling you guys, when this shows up in the mail, and it's realistically 18 by 24 art area, and she squeals and says, "Where are we going to hang it?" You know, it's just like, yep, okay, I found her. She's a keeper. This piece is just a stunner. It is, for those of you that are a little bit into pop culture, you can see the heavy metal homage occurring here from the I don't know, what year was that? 1980, 81 movie poster that had all of the metal background, which is how they published it actually. But this is actually Pepe Valencia's first cover that he had done, which I just asked him and he verified. I have all the process photos of this too, which is just astonishing to see how this piece changes with a white background to a red background. And he told me that he had colored in the red there all in one night for about 7 hours with pencil so he wouldn't get in trouble for leaving it white. And then he got in trouble for coloring it, which I thought was funny. But the only thing that I can think that was done on this after the fact is they did change the bikini to silver, just because, more recognizable, and it definitely had a stronger effect once they added the stainless steel background that they used for the cover, actually. And this was a limited cover, probably, I believe, somewhere in England as well. Black Flag Comics, I believe, is who put this out. And it's just the thing that I've seen a lot of pencil artists, and I'm not usually a big fan of strictly pencil art. But when you can see someone execute colored pencil art like this, to me, it is just on another level. A lot of graphite artists can really wow me, but there aren't a whole lot of colored pencil artists that can really wow, in my opinion. And some of the actual little shading in the wings, it's almost like you can feel leather when you look at it, even. And yes, I did get this several years ago, Tim. I just saw that from Annabelle. This was another one of those that literally I saw this, and I believe within a minute of her putting it up for sale, I was committed to it, because it's just one of those pieces that I've never met anybody who has seen it who hasn't been astonished by it. And the level of texturing and depth on top of just the great layout, mm-hmm. is it's very explosive. I recently got that framed as well.
I was just going to ask that. So it's on the wall.
Oh yeah, it's on the wall up here as well. A lot of the color pieces that I have are on walls here and there in the house. A lot of the black and white art hasn't done that yet, but I'm working on a giant black and white art only room display, probably, that will cover every square inch of wall. It's the goal anyway. Hopefully, someday, if I can get enough,
Sure. Nothing wrong with that. Now this next piece.
If you can get the #1 Marvel fan to quit buying everything, that'd be great.
He doesn't buy everything. He doesn't buy a lot.
That's true. That is true. I'm just giving him a hard time. I mean, that guy gets it done. But and Tim said I needed a J piece, and yeah, I would like to have one of those as well. He's one of the graphite artists who truly is a step apart. This beautiful thing here. This is my guy Jason So. Okay. And I know that out here, everybody's like saying who, and I'm telling you, it's Jason So. I absolutely have loved this piece since the second I saw it. It is Killer Clowns. And if you haven't seen the movie, you have done yourself an amazing disservice at looking.
I haven't seen the movie. I have to tell you.
Oh, Bill. Okay. See, I'm telling you, this is the cultiest of cult classics. And he always puts little Easter eggs in there and little things. And He's very into, I like his style simply because he's rough. He's raw. The blue line, I love the way he leaves his blue lines in as well. But his inking, it has an underground feel to it, but it's still just, it does it for me. So I'm a big fan of this guy's stuff all the way around. And I do sell his art on No Better Art, but he's been doing quite a lot lately in a lot of different fields. He's been working on one title. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, Bill, I'm getting tired. Just kidding. He's been working on Necroman for like about 4 years, which is a series locally that, they publish themselves. So, and then it was published through Paranoia Comics, and that was recently picked up by another company by the name of, I can't really even recall. I apologize for that. But this specific piece, being the Killer Clowns, it embodies everything about the movie in general. You're all here. This was used as a print for a horror creature feature fest, a big one here in Hershey there. So it's quite a piece when you see it. There's just a great deal of detail. And like I say, I really am quite a fan of his work in general, this piece notwithstanding.
Well, I'll put it on my watch list.
Hey, you really should. You really should. You should probably throw the Necroman on your reading list if you get a chance. It's not bad. It's a good title. It's local. I'm a big supporter of local cons and local talent. We're talking about a guy who drew that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's working a job 40 hours a week, and he's making comics. He's drawing interiors. He's doing things for cons. He's teaching community art classes, Bill, for free. Finding the time to do that. The man has a Girl Scout. Did you know there's a Girl Scout comic book achievement badge?
I did not.
I did not. But you know what? He's got one tattooed on his arm right here because he teaches classes so the Girl Scouts can get that. And that's one of my favorite things about that dude is he gives back,
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see artists who not only have to draw because they have to draw. I have to. I have to. All this other stuff like the real world, my job and all that gets in the way, but I'm still able to do it. And I admire that so damn much that I really try to make sure that those guys at some point get to do what they love and only what they love. That's one of the things I try to achieve in this world. Spread art love, it's not about always knowing better art. Sometimes I think it's about knowing better artists as well,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Meeting the people that, like I say, that you can tell are the same heart as you or have the same giving spirit or things along those lines. But sorry, go ahead.
So something different than Killer Clowns is a Wolverine and Ghost Rider.
Okay, there we go. There's something different. There's something for the masses. Sorry. This is a guy named Brent Peoples. And I absolutely adore this page because, well, it's the first modern page I've been able to find just very quickly and easily from an artist who was friendly to me that had two major characters fighting on it. And it's a great page. The first shot of Ghost Rider in and of itself is fantastic. And this is very outside of his usual style, which is usually very, for lack of a better term, minimalistically line-wise, with motion shown with brushwork, for lack of a better way of saying it. It's this has washes in it, which, like I say, is not per se his usual format. And this was done for just the new series from Ghost Rider. I have a couple consecutive pages from the story, and this is one of the things that I think people begin to realize is how many good pages are in a book. The story is so important that then when you start to actually begin to look for, well, I want a page with both of them on it, and you may find out, well, there's only 3 of them. There's only two of them in the entire story, even though the story is full of both characters. Maybe they're only fighting on 2 or 3 pages. And that was why it was important for me to get two of my favorite characters from an artist who this was Brent's one of the gentlemen I bought a great deal of pages from, as far as I'm concerned, for me anyway. I bought a stack of pages off of him because, I was looking to make a good deal, and he took care of me, and he continues to do so. He's a good artist. And I had honestly, truth be told, I had not heard of him. And then I started looking at his credit list. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's been around forever. And then you begin to see not necessarily the original art community love that he's been getting, but you see that the publishers certainly love him. He has clearly an economy of line, and very good sequential storytelling here is another one of the things that I really enjoy about his work. And getting to see, Wolverine with some hellfire on the claws, you can't go wrong.
Sure, we've had him on the channel.
Ever. Ever. You can never go wrong with that.
Now, this next piece is a little different.
Oh, yes. This one is a little different entirely. This has a lot of history on it, and the story behind the story, etc., with Byron Prius, the guy who wrote Secret, and he was the publisher. And this is from Alfred Bester's science fiction novel, Stars My Destination, which is considered by many of us who are science fiction fanatics to be one of the greatest science fiction stories ever written. Very strong story. I read it at a transformative period in my life, and I only got to read half of it because I originally got a copy of this book when it was released the first time, before it had been fully released, by which I mean there was some sort of a controversy. I'm not entirely sure of all of it, but wherein the publisher did not pay Mr. Chaikin or other individuals for work, so the rest of the book wasn't published. This is from the first half. This is, I believe, page 56 or so. And this is a scene where, and I just love the full bleed on this for one thing, and the color scheme. And it's just very raw Chaikin from a year after, he did the Star Wars stuff. But it's incredibly a different story. It's a different visual. All of the wording on it is added, just kind of glued on. One of the pages that I had acquired actually had a hidden panel on it. I believe I have moved that one. I grabbed a group of these all at once so that I could, get a better number on them. So I kept the two that I loved. And this story is, if you haven't read it and you read science fiction, then you owe it to yourself to give it a read. This is the big escape sequence where basically you see acid washing off their clothes, which is why he ended up getting nude. But this is all during a massive break where he's helping, the resident hottie get away. And as things occur, this is all occurring in the dark, and he's using, as you can see there, he has on like night vision goggles. And eventually the outcome of this is after they escape, at some point she sees him with the lights on, and you can see his face has the tattoo scars that were considered so hideous. And as part of the story, a separator of classes and such. So this just is pure Howard as far as I was concerned, because that's the only thing I will ever see when I see it. I know he did the pencils. I know he did, every little bit of this. And the fact that it's color and just really was, I got these from Europe, I believe. I believe I picked these up from Europe somewhere. And let me see.
And you have another page in the
There's
your
those,
CAF
those,
Gallery as well.
which of course came without words.
Mhm.
Some of them actually had it on there, and these are actually, I've had them signed by Howard since then, which was just a absolute pleasure. I love that guy. I love Howard Chaykin. He's fantastic. He's good
Yep.
people.
Well, he's been on the channel a lot, and
Oh
yeah,
yes, indeed.
he is a lot of fun to hang out with. That's for sure.
So the first, oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. All right.
Now,
Yeah.
who's this one? Now, this is
Okay.
I didn't look at this one before I
Now,
made this slide today.
Alberto Ponticelli. Okay, this is another one of those guys I found out by just talking to Italian guys about art in general. And this is actually the second part of a 2-page sequence that I have. The first page essentially just shows the gentleman running down past all of these bodies that you see in the sewer and coming up to the gentleman that in the page before, we all know he's the Punisher because they show him from the front when the guy runs up to him. And you get to see just this cinematic, slow reveal, just the look of hatred in his eyes, just the intensity that you're able to achieve with just the perfect placement of those eyes right there in the second panel down, just to me is astonishing. This was Marvel Knights to me, and this is volume 2, which a lot of people, I'm sure everyone's familiar with volume 1 and such, especially lately with the anniversary and everything. But this was Marvel Knights volume 2, which focused on Punisher, Daredevil, Black Widow. And this just completely cinematic breakdown as you go down to actually the gun being pointed in your face that's one of the things that the Alberto Ponticelli does. Is there is a level of just grittiness and just edginess to every single one of the pages that I have. I ask anybody that's actually watching and paying attention to please go take a look at my Marvel Knights gallery, where there's plenty of pages by this guy. And all of them are the same. He's very good with motion stop capture, which I love. I've always loved, the cinematic motion in a page. This was, let me see how I can't remember that was. So this probably was around 2002. I think this came out. So this story would have been right around the time I had quit, I believe. And I remembered the story and had liked the story. And when I happened to come across a large group of these for sale, I worked out a deal for them so that I would be able to have the ones that are eternally loved and still have hopefully some to be able to sell when no better art.
Very nice. Now, let's see. Next up, we haven't seen any DC stuff, but now we do.
Aha, this baby. Oh boy, this one been around a while. This is one of the ones that's original. There were only so many that are still around, and at last count there were 3, and I traded one of them to Timothy, the Scott Guerrero there, and another one I sold to a good friend of mine. And this one is just one of Matthew Clark's earliest Wonder Woman issues. And this is another one of those that I sourced off of eBay directly from Matthew Clark circa 2000 when it came out. And I remember the issue wasn't but a couple months old. And at the time, the lady I was dating looked incredibly like this version of Wonder Woman. So it was an easy purchase to buy at that time. And I love a good title page. And this one has it all. This title page has it all. It's got your lead into the story, the credits. I miss the days of some of those things, some of the word balloons. It's a very mixed bag with me. But sometimes when presented right, like this, with like it being vertically on the right side and such, and I have loved this page since the second I saw it. Just the economy of form, just the layout of it caught my eye the second I saw it. I showed it to the individual at the time, and we agreed this would be a great one for the home. And I've had that for, like I say, I've had that for 24 years now. That's probably, other than my Simonson Thor that I have up there, this is probably the piece I have that is the oldest in the collection at this point. But it is a Wonder Woman par excellence that has just everything at that time that I loved about Wonder Woman, because we also had during all of this run, there were those incredible Adam Hughes covers, those game changers actually around that time. He had done plenty of his other work and everything, but those covers in this range to me really set him apart and out in everybody's eyes. That run on Wonder Woman, those covers. And I remember this had one of those covers, and I almost, for the first time in my life, I remember I had contemplated framing with the cover because it was such a beautiful cover by Adam Hughes, and it was a return of devastation too. So this is one that I believe will never leave as well. And it is a beauty.
Very nice.
Mm.
Now, again, like I say, we're going to keep changing it up a bit here.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, you do your thing. This one here. Okay. This leads me to ask questions of viewership even. Like, if you get a piece like this that has that on it, is it okay to patch it? Is it okay to, there's so many things I want to do with this page, but primarily the thing I really wanted to say about it is this is the closing page to Legend of the Spider Clan, which was Scotty Young's really early Marvel work. Like, this was one of the last comics I bought before I stopped buying new comics also. And this page is penciled by Kerry Randolph. And it is the closing page to the entirety of Legend of the Spider Clan, which I enjoyed as a different take on Spider-Man, even though at the time I was kind of a purist and not much on alternate universes. I just, for some reason, found it enjoyable. And I always really enjoyed the story. And then years later, I found out, Scotty Young wrote a bunch of that. And then he drew the early issues with someone else inking. And then they switched to Kerry, I believe, drawing and Scotty writing. And I'm not really exactly sure what happened with all that. But the beautiful thing about this page is right there in letters where it says to Isabella and Sienna, right? So it was personalized, not to I. On the published page, it says, special thanks to Marvel, special thanks to all the folks at Marvel for ensuring this project was completed. Something to this effect, thanking Marvel. And if you look in the top left of the actual page itself, you will see the DC stock it's on, which just makes it extra special to me because it always makes me giggle that they drew a thank you page to Marvel on DC stock, and it just made me giggle. This iconic pose of Karate Kid, speaks to my generation strongly, and because of the Cobra Kai show, also to an entirely other generation now. For those of us that saw Ralph Macchio do this in Karate Kid when we were kids, this was something else, and I actually decided to reacquire this from a friend because one day I was walking through the house and I saw Benjamin doing it, and he was doing his little crane stance all over the house. And I decided this would be a good one for his room where he could see it. And that's why I'm trying to figure out what to do with to Isabella and Sienna, kind of signature in the middle there. Whether I should kind of stat it over or maybe get a acetate of some kind with a white background, but I'll figure that out eventually when it's time to frame it. But this is just one of those very simple pencil pieces. It's just got economy aligned. Yep, there we go. It's just the fact that it's on DC stock just literally made my day. I have no idea why. Because back then, when we were back at that time, there was a very much a DC versus Marvel war that was reconciled with a miniseries.
That's true. But yeah, for that, I mean, to answer your question, I would probably just do an overlay that has the white paste
White
up
background with that printed.
Yeah, and just layer that over it, and then it would cover up the at least when you're displaying it, and then even if you don't put it on the wall, when it's in your portfolio, then it looks like that. There's
Yes,
nothing wrong with doing that.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't erase the names. Usually, we tell people don't do that.
I don't like to do that. But I don't like to alter anything. I don't. Oh, which is another thing that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like when you buy a piece that's that big and there's this much art on it, it's like, do I really need to keep the 18 by 24 for the 5 by 7 inch? Things along these lines. But anyway, see, these are the things that I think we should come up with as a kind of a community guideline or recommendations or something along those lines that is very much informative for younger collectors and older collectors alike. Just trying to get everybody using the same verbiage is important to me as well.
I get it. But yeah, that's that's a personal choice on that one. But I would definitely I wouldn't have any problem with that. I think a lot of people would like to see there's a lot of collectors that actually put the word balloons on the artwork using overlays because anymore. So very common.
I miss the words, that's true. I do miss them sometimes. Oh, this is a local guy. This is a painter. This is one of the guys I like to point out to individuals because I believe he's talented. His name is Joe Palumbo. And as he says, no, I'm not related. He is no relation to Dave or the others in that family. But Joe Palumbo is his name. And this was just his Spawnuary Plague Spawn, when Todd had his big cover contest. This was his submission for that. And upon seeing it, I decided that it would look very good in the room that I'm sitting in now. The colors on it explode. I liked the layout. It's very hard to actually get good photographs and pictures of these things. Sometimes like oil paintings. And this one in particular, I had a harder time getting a good image of. So I actually went back to an older image of it. So I'm not sure how, that is a complete image on the left. I own the pencils to this as well. I can honestly say probably the only time in my life I've ever bought anything not knowing who the character was. I have not read Spawn lately. I haven't been up lately with comics. I've just not been reading that many. And I was unaware of Plague Spawn, and I just really liked the entire flow of this piece. I just felt it was strong. I just felt this was very strong and amazingly reasonably priced, which I have to say I'm very thankful for many of my local artists as well. Those guys can kind of keep me in the game with affordability, and I'm very happy to do that, to see their skill level grow, because they seem to keep getting better, and to me that's very important, that we foster and help artists to get better, give them the opportunity to, and I think spreading some of that love around goes a long way. And he's done some comic book covers that I know of for smaller press local things, but covers nonetheless. I'm sure he's done something very important that I'm forgetting. But Joe Palumbo. And like I say, if you want to look him up, I may be the only person with his stuff on here because got to start somewhere, right? I think he's off to a good start. That's all.
I think you're right. I mean, I think just checked on CAF, and you have all 4 pieces that are
Yep.
on there. But that's okay.
Yep. Okay. And you see,
Point.
I'm never afraid to post things that I purchase or buy. I believe there's no such thing as great publicity. Only lots of it, you know.
Well, we get to switch back to Simone on this next.
Oh yeah. Oh baby. Hi Tim. Don't get mad, Tim. Don't get mad, Tim. All right. This page right here was one of those. Second I saw it, oh my God, I want to get that. And all I'll say is on the back of it, it says like, to Tim, love Simone. But this was actually, this was the first trade I had ever done in my life. And that was with Timothy Guerrero there. And I traded a Mike Deodato Batman page for this. Detective page that was really nice. But at the time, it just had bad memories attached to it for me. It had been threatened to be destroyed once, and it just had bad memories. So this allowed me to get rid of that piece and get this. So I acquired this piece, and this is another one of those pieces. His astonishing X-Men work is off the chains, and everybody knows that. The level of work in that series is really, truly next level, as is his work in the original Wolverine's Evolutions with Jeff Loeb. This page here, you have his beautiful architecture in the top panel that he does, which he incorporates into a great deal of his work, which I also love. He has a deep love of architecture, and you can see it because it's so correctly done always, which is, to me, a thing of beauty. There's always energy. There's so much energy in a top panel showing the opening of a ghost box. I believe this may be the first ghost box opening, first time it's actually opened in the entire storyline. But the little ethereal figures around there floating, and then the Cyclops in the middle is worthy of every single panel is a masterpiece. Even a face shot of Cyclops is just next level beautiful. The bottom panel, however, the bottom panel is one of my single favorite comic panels of all time, simply because she's got on earrings and and a cloak with design work in it, and there's so much love and attention to detail. The armor, characters' armor around her with a slight bit of whiteout on it there, it just makes that entire panel, the entire bottom panel, is my screensaver now, because even when you blow it up to that size, it's still strong. And in the middle of my last said divorce, I had acquired this from Tim right at the beginning of that. And by the end of it, I was in need of funds. So I had sold this to a friend with the, hey, please get back a hold of me. Valerio de Grazia, the Spanish man, he's awesome. He's a fantastic guy. He's living in Spain now. And Valerio ensured that when the time came, I just sent him a thing and said, hey, I saw you put it up. Can you please get it to me? And he arranged very fair time payments with me, because not every piece is always within my immediate grasp. But that's one of the things people have had to learn with dealing with me, is sometimes, I'm a couple days late, and I've learned that is not a good thing. And so I've definitely worked on making sure that I handle things appropriately without biting off more than I can chew. And with this piece coming back here from Valerio, I was just so excited because it's the only real true team shot I have of them from that series, even if it doesn't have Beast in it. But I have plenty of pages from that series. The majority of the pages that I have from Simone are all Astonishing X-Men pages now. I believe I have 14 of these now.
Very, very nice. I've always wanted one myself, but yeah, it's fantastic. Congrats getting it back after letting it go.
That one felt good to get back, especially since Timothy had traded it to me. You know, I felt like I owed it to another collector to bring that back where I told him it was going to be. In some way, I felt that. So, this. Okay. All right. Here we have Tuskers by Daniel Govar, the artist on this. I had recently just acquired the big, like I say, the double page spread that's on my probably my featured gallery, even. I'm not sure. But this story in and of itself, the everywhere within our home are elephants. Screen behind me here, I'm sure, is nothing but elephants. You can't really turn your head without seeing elephants in this house. So when I saw that an artist who I had met and enjoyed and really liked talking to, Daniel Govar, had done some of these pages, I started looking, and this is the one I acquired on Comic Link. So this was the first page I acquired from the series, but it's not a series; it's a graphic novel. Excuse me. And basically what we're looking at here is a group running to protect a elephant herd who's being hunted for, obviously, their tusks for ivory. This is the story of a group shepherding these elephants to a safe preserve while, dealing with the bad guy, our warlord, who likes to chop things off, slaughters entire families of elephants, even the ones without tusks, etc. The main character in the story, which is really fantastic, is a ranger guy who has a limb missing, half of his leg. So there's that bond there that attaches, like you can see our one elephant here has one tusk, because that was stopped. That's one of but the maternal love shown here in the last two scenes, in the last two pages, the top panel with the negative tree in and of itself just makes me I love that. I love negative imagery. And the oranges in this are just astonishingly beautiful. And orange is my favorite color, somehow. And the full bleed nature of this as well also really does it for me. The way that the mother extends all the way up into the right and down into the corner as well. It had such a level of sweetness to it amongst the danger. And I absolutely love the way he uses like the negative space to make the grass and such, and the tree itself just be white. The oranges, I know, yep, there we go. I was going to say exactly what Robert just said. That pigment, that's where you can get it. So he did that. He acquired the orange pigment himself with their little trip to Africa, which I didn't know that's what he was doing, but I was watching him on Facebook while he was on his African safari and said, "Oh, don't worry about it, Robert. You're my hero. Trust me, you can do no wrong in my house ever, Robert Berman. You have like a pass for life with my lady, I'm telling you." The page that he traded me from this series was the "We're Completing the House" page. So this was the first of the Tuskers pages, and it will also, this is one of those that's permanent and is never going anywhere, because this is one of the ones that we both just love to a maximum degree.
Oh, very nice. I love Daniel's work. He's I've been a fan of his work for a long time. Very nice guy, like you said.
Diverse, can do
Yeah.
a lot of things, can he?
Yeah, that is
Can do
for
a
sure.
lot of things. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
congrats.
Oh, real quick. Hey, there's the book right there. That's Tusker's backwards. But there's his plane sketch that he put on the inside of it for me on the way to Heroes Con. You know, I was like, "You did that on the plane?" He's like, "Yeah, I did that on the plane." I'm like, I hate you. Just kidding. Just such skill. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And you know, he just one of those guys that I met. One of the first pieces I bought when I came back. I've parted with it, but it was just a little like 6-inch square piece by him that I could afford that I absolutely adored. Still on my watch list always.
Well, now we're going back to a little bit of Marvel here. Right?
Now we're smoking. See, I tried to be eclectic. And I didn't want to just bring the usual suspects. So I ran into this gentleman at Heroes Con. This is by Mike Lilly, and this is Marvel Knights Volume 1, actually. And this page has just so much I love about it. The look over the shoulder that Widow is throwing the dagger on the top panel. I just really like the fact that you can clearly ascertain the facial expression of what's being passed on there, right? Mm-hmm. And as you go down into the next panel, we get something you don't see very much these days, right? We definitely see some smoking Nick Fury there, right? A full cigar shot, which I have not been able to find the issue yet. I believe they may have, I don't know what they would have done at that time. What year was that? Okay. I believe they just digitized it out, the cigarette at that point. I know they did in the page before this. Which is coming as well. See, after meeting Mike, who I just got along with marvelously. He was sitting beside Gus Malk, a friend of mine. And so after talking to Mike for a while, I started looking through his portfolio. And I can honestly tell you, of everyone I saw at Heroes Con, I can honestly say I believe he is an artist had the most reasonably priced items in his portfolio that I saw. And I was just really captured by this one. Also, because you can tell that there is possession occurring without the need of color, which the shock on Dagger's face in the corner, but also there's notes on the bottom of the page about lighting their eyes colored to show. But the fact of the matter is you can tell that these aren't the good guys just from a black and white image. And the circles across the stairs in front, you know, just even that alone, just the slight size differentiation between each step, it literally just kind of pulls you in and pushes you away at the same time, forcing your eye up, which I just love. And Fury just looks like you don't want none right there. And I will keep that in mind, sir. I will keep that in mind. And that's why I bought it, because I knew you missed it. I'm like, he must have missed this one. But yeah, I looked through his portfolios there and picked out this one page. It was the end of my budget. You know, I'm standing there counting money and, hey, can you do this? And, you know, all of that, trying to work a deal. And thankfully, after talking enough to him, and actually, I believe him understanding my genuine and true love for the piece, and the fact that I wanted to reach out to him in the future, enabled me to grab this. And it's just so strong. The stances, there's just, it exudes attitude and everything that I love about that series, you know. And it's Nick Fury smoking, so I just had to. The page before it has him on kind of like in the control room, like setting up high on a chair. and he has the cigar outstretched in his hand, which I know Mike told me they had digitized over and put like something in his hand that just looked like nothing in his hand. So they had taken the cigar out, so it just looked like he was kind of holding his hand out, holding on to nothing in the middle of the air. But I also have about, I don't know, 13 pages coming from him. So that I really, really liked. So give him a look. He did Nightwing. He did a really solid run on Nightwing as well, I'd have to say, there for several years. So he's done across both companies there.
Well, very nice work, and see, number one Marvel fan is putting the word out that he's ready. You know, like we were talking about earlier, it never hurts to let people know you're interested in something.
Exactly. It never does. Trust me, it never does.
And there's a fair amount of artwork by Mike on the site too. He's not like 500, but I know he's got well over 300 pieces.
Oh yes, and that's one of the things is I'm realizing that a lot of guys that are in this field and are comic book artists aren't necessarily on the radar, just because the field it's a crowded field and crowded more by the day. And so sometimes some of the older names that didn't get an initial pop standout kind of fade into the background. And after seeing this dude's work, I didn't want that to happen to that guy. So not 13 dozen, Timothy. I didn't buy 13 dozen. I bought a dozen. Okay, I bought 13 pages, I think, but one of them was a double page splash. How about that?
Yeah, that would have been
exciting. This is the Happy Wife, Happy Life piece here. David Mack, the lady's favorite artist. How did I know? He would be walking around the house and, ooh, who did that? Ooh, who painted that? Ooh, who liked that? Yeah, and every single time it's David Mack. And I kept, I would put things on top of David Mack covers and she would find them. So I was like, at some point, we're going to have to get her a David Mack. And I'm like, can't you, pick somebody a little bit lower than that? And she refused. This is her guy. So she loved David Mack. And our second our second Baltimore Comic-Con together, we went, and this was literally in front of her while I was trying to get Howard Chaykin to sign my Stars My Destination pages. She wouldn't stop punching me in the arm until I was like, I stopped, I looked, I leaned over, and she goes, this one. And I said, what? She goes, this matches the house and it's him, right? And now the thing that made me particularly proud is she picked out that it was a David Mack piece, right? And pretty much all she had seen was his watercolor works. And it may have been the little symbol at the bottom. I'm not even sure it's signed twice, but I know it's got the old school imprint there. And yeah. And this is Alice Cooper, number 4 from Dynamite Publishing. So it was the last concert that we had seen, Alice Cooper. And there it is staring at us. And I was like, yeah, that's close enough to Sandman. I can get away with that. And so after seeing it and kind of discussing it with, I'm trying to remember his name. He's the gentleman from Spiderweb comic art. James Josh, maybe Josh. He saw that she was very enamored by it, and we worked out a deal that worked for both of us. And he gave me some background on the piece, and it's framed beautifully, which it hangs in our blue room. And it's the star of the show, in my opinion. It is an absolute gorgeous mixed media piece. It's done on a whole series of small little pieces of photographic paper that were then taped into place. As you can see, the tape where the ink didn't hold. I was very just happy to get a mixed media piece by him as well, and not to fall into what a lot lately have been the watercolor images, some of which seem to me to can be done very quickly. This seems to have much more complexity to it and depth. And actually, the reason that I believe he is a fine artist is shown in this more so than some of the other pieces I've seen. The things with 3 or 4 different layers are maddening to me. I hate when I see an image and then I find out it's actually 3 pieces layered on top of each other to get the image, because you can't display it as such, that's so I understand the process is the process and such, but I can honestly say I much prefer a one-piece process. He was very informative about this. Originally, I had been told that there were little Alice Cooper albums that had been cut up. The album covers had been cut up and taped in place, and found out that was incorrect. And it was just really old photographic, like Kodak paper that he had used to do such, after talking to him, which is a pleasure. David Mack is an absolute pleasure. I don't believe I've ever met a more humble human being in my life, and a more gifted, humble human being in my life. And one of my favorite moments from the last time I met him was I brought him a copy of something to sign that made him light up like Christmas. And it just makes me so happy sometimes. I've been in this so long that I've still got the things. I still have things. So I was able to take him a copy of Young Dracula to sign, which most people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's where I learned about David Mack. Series called Young Dracula from Caliber, way, way back. Pre-Kabuki, I liked his stuff then, but to see it, and for him, you could tell that he hadn't seen a copy of that book in years, and him showing it to people and smiling and everything. It's just like, those are the interactions that I'm getting with artists that just make me want to continue to purchase their work,
Oh yeah, and it's always good when the significant other enjoys the work as well.
Oh, yes. I'm telling you, I kind of understand. I'm in a kind of a remote group there with that, but she wants to work on that. She wants us to have a OAX ladies tea. That's what she's like. Let's get the women there somehow. They'll come. You just have to offer them something. Mm-hmm. So that's the thought. Just so you know. A ladies luncheon, comic art buyer support group. This beauty right here. Oh gosh, this was the only piece I won at the auction that year. I literally sat there. This is Baltimore Comic-Con 2022. Baltimore Comic-Con, the yearbook cover for that. And it was also the T-shirt and the VIP badges and such. And it's Jill Thompson. And this was her scary godmother. The year I love how they do that at Baltimore, by the way. How they focus on a character and have everybody run wild with it. And I love it. Especially this character. Because I have been a fan of that character since it came out. I have things this is just laying around my office. These aren't props, but like I have like love cards from 2000 Sirius that she did. I've got book pads with her stuff on it. This piece in and of itself is just vibrant as can be. And I sat there and I lost every single bid I put in on an item in that auction, every single one. And I just couldn't believe I lost all of them. And it got to a point where I just said, okay, we were down to about 10 items left. And I said, this is the one I'm going to get. We're going to get that, honey. We're going to get that. And she said, what? And I said, we're going to get the cover. And she said, like the T-shirt? And I'm like, yeah, like the T-shirt you're wearing. So I just, for the first time that day, I walked up and just went to the back of the room. And very quickly, when the bidding started, I just said $500. And then, there was maybe another bid. And then I think I upped it again by a good chunk just because I was I was buying this that day, because now my entire budget was now in one piece, no matter what, because they had all outbid me. So, but this piece that night was the Ringo Awards as well, which is always a wonderful thing in Baltimore. And actually, like I've said before, I believe Jill actually had that purse on her arm, the spider purse here. And I believe also, actually, I know also the necklace that she is wearing had been crafted by Jill. She was actually wearing the necklace that she's wearing in this image right here, which to me was just really fantastic. And her and Charnel like talking about boots and such. So this is one of those pieces that will never leave. It is loved. It just has so much personality and joy. And it's also the very first piece you ever that I've ever had featured on here. Maybe the only. But I was like one in the little featured piece up in the corner there, and it made my day or whatever. It really did. You know, I've told you, I sent you an email long ago about this site is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, and I still mean that.
I appreciate that. I do. That's it's still something I thoroughly enjoy waking up and working on every single day.
I'm very glad. And in all the windows too, in all the little windows, there's things going on. There's ghosts, there's ghouls, there's, all kinds of neat little things.
That's beautiful. I love
it.
Let me see here. Now, the next piece I am not familiar with.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is Gus Small, who he is a local fella. He became known very well for his charcoal drawings. His charcoal work is absolutely next level, and what I believe is his separator, actually. I believe that is the thing that sets him apart from other artists that I see. This series here is Shinokagi, which the Shadow of Death or Shadow of Death. But Gus does a lot of things. He does a lot of sketch covers. I know he does some shows with Clam McDonald at times. He's done some covers. I know he did a Department of H cover that was really, really, really nice. I don't have any of those, so this is what I was going to show you, is a page from the series that I have called Shinokagi. And that was put out by a company called Black Box Comics, smaller local again. And good stuff. Great read. And one of the things that I really like about this page, I horribly realized I couldn't show you because it's here briefly, just so you can see this. There's a sequence of these pages that I have 4 or 5 of them. And they have these seamless transitions between then and now with using color and light to immediately inform you what's happening when, which I absolutely loved that about this page in particular. That and the fact, the reason I like this page is it has, the meeting of the betrayer and the betrayed. But it also shows the tattooing at the top, which I really enjoyed. I love the layouts. I love the textures that he uses. And I absolutely can say it took me probably a day to see the guy standing in the doorway. And if you're going to be that ninja with me, I was distracted by everything else looking. But yeah, his portrait work truly, if you wish to see the thing that separates him from others, in my opinion, you can look up his portrait work. And Gus Malk, M-A-U-K, and he is, and this story is great too, by the way. And I also have a liking for a Japanese story, samurai, ninja. It's that whole Frank Miller did it to me thing. There's ninjas everywhere. But actually, that's not true. Michael Kaluta did it to me. He threw a ninja on Shadow number, I think, 6 or something. There's a Shadow story in that from the 70s. But this page here, I liked the layout. I liked the centrality of it. And It was the page that I chose to show of his. The other ones are much more flowing, but I believe this shows a little bit more just depth to it. So, like I say, I wasn't going with the usual suspects here.
No, you have not. But we are going back to one for the last time tonight.
Yes, we are. This is it. This is the boomer right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is and always will be my finale piece, I guess. The reason I say I wanted these first and last, simply because make a long story short, it was Valentine's Day or right after Valentine's Day. And a friend of ours was staying with us here. And she took a Valentine's Day picture of us. And then when she showed it to me, I was like, oh, that reminds me of this. So I went and I'm looking on the internet at that exact moment. I decide it's time for me to go show her this. So I start typing and there it is right away. And I'm like, what? And it's at auction. It was at Comic Link. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is meant for Charnel and I to have this. At which point I immediately realized if I got this one, I would only be one page away from having all of the Thanos death splashes from the series, from Thanos Rising. So I knew that if I just grabbed this one and could talk that last guy into coming off the other one, that I would literally have every single one of the Thanos death splashes from the series, which was the thing that got me started, that we started with tonight. A Thanos death splash. That's one of them. So to me, this one was vital to acquire. I actually sold some things that I didn't want to sell so that I could bid on this and such at the time. And if this one is a stunner, Matt, you are damn right. This one is a stunner. And so are the pencils for it, which I own as well. The pencils and ink wash prelim for this are just simply next level. They really are. But this painting is how it's published in the book. It is a published full color splash in the book. This is, I believe, 2 to 3 pages before the end, where basically, it's a kiss goodbye in a way, we shall say, for Thanos. But if you've never read Thanos Rising and you're a fan of the character, I strongly suggest doing that. It's really, really an incredible piece. But I was fortunate with this in that a friend told me he was going to bid a very obnoxious amount of money on it in France. And he fell asleep at the wheel that night. So I was incredibly, incredibly fortunate to get this one when I did and how I did at auction, especially. And especially since there were 2 pieces in the auction, this and the prelim, which, like I say, is a work in and of itself of beauty. And so someday all 4 of them are going to be in a framing environment that we're trying to figure out and work out to perfection. So.
Well, congrats on that. It was meant to be.
Oh, Marcus. There's one in every crowd.
Yeah.
And we always Marcus. I love it. It's good. I love this community. And it's the main thing that I want to bring to this is, even if I am monotonous or collect only particular artists or don't always have the highest end or old pieces, I really think there's a whole world of art out there. And that we all need to open and spread our wings a little bit. Go to that small local show, walk through Artist Alley, look and see who's there, because every single one of the rock stars that sell out their stuff today started out there most likely. And it's good to go find those people early. And if you see them, support them and help them and do anything that you can in your power to get their work seen by others. I think it's our community's responsibility to do that. Instead of having necessarily publishers dictate to us who we're looking at, some of the comic art collectors can begin to dictate who we see as well. Just things I think about, you know?
Yeah. Good things to think about. Now we have one last piece to look at though.
Oh, okay. Now, ha ha ha. Now, once again, everybody's like, what is this? That's right. It is. What is this? This is Major Tom versus the Spiders from Mars, which is, once again, the guy I work with, Jason So. This is, I'm going to say a couple things about the book. There are spiders everywhere. This is the most educational comic book you can read. I actually, being a space nerd and junkie, learned things about space by reading this, which I was a little bit astonished. I learned things by reading a comic book. There are factoids throughout this involving why a story could possibly go down this way. Why you would have to have things this particular way. There's NASA imaging without, which he was allowed to use as well, because NASA will freely give you use of their things if it's educational. This series was done through Wham Comics, which is Writers, Arters, Music, another local. This is one of the holographic covers, sold out immediately. The other holographic cover, sold out immediately. The book itself, as far as I know, may still be available. Pretty much everything he does locally sells out immediately. He's caring for story as well as art. Here, this piece really pops in hollow foil, as does the other cover that I picked up from it. And there's just a lot of room here, if you can imagine, for the hollow foil to really pop off of that. The spiders themselves are red and blue, which I can honestly say was one of the coolest little marketing things I ever saw. The day that he released it, he was giving out little spiders and big spiders like this. They're just like these little red prefab things, and it looks so simple. But the thing is when they're creepy, because when you set them down, they continue to move just a little bit. So the whole thing here that we're talking about is this is another. This has a surprise ending. It is educational. It's a good story. It has elements of various science fiction books I've read. It has elements in it of music that I love. And most importantly, I can guarantee that if anybody in the world reads this book, Major Tom versus Spiders from Mars, you will learn something. And it's just something that I have to say that I believe strongly in. I backed this project when it was on Kickstarter, simply because I believed in a man and his dream on a comic. And I just want to do everything I can to get good artists doing good things continuing. Yep. Okay. There we go. There's thank you for showing that, Bill. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. There's another hollow foil cover that I have, but I don't have a scan of it yet. I believe I showed that one as well. That one. I can't wait for that one to get here. That's the one I'm really waiting to arrive. But he wanted to show that one off a little bit more. So, but it's a really good read if you get a chance to find it. If not, hit me up, or look me up on knowbetterart.com. If you're still with me and you wish to purchase anything tonight or send a request at knowbetterart.com, feel free. And it's 25% off anything and everything on the stop if you're here.
There you go. Yeah, and I did put the link in the show description for your website and your CAF Gallery, so
Thank
people
you.
can
Okay.
introduce
Absolutely.
themselves properly.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I am William Lawson of No Better Art, and I'm trying. It's the only thing I've got now, so it's all I'm doing, Bill.
Yeah, no. It's your passion, clearly. That's a good
thing. The only thing I have, man. It's my heart, and I'm very proud to be a part of a community, and I see a movement within the community, and I see a lot of young collectors coming in. you know, and I see a lot of new collectors coming in, and we need to make sure that everything that the older collectors, such as myself, hard to believe, um, know to pass down to some of these guys, to make sure that we share stories, thoughts, ideas, techniques, things we miss, things we love, etc. You know, I think it's very important.
That is very, very true, William. So, so I know we're going to get to see each other again at OAX.
Indeed, OAX. Oh, this is going to be a blast. I'm ready. I'm very excited for this.
I think everybody can expect to see it. We're going to do most of our main announcements are going to happen after San Diego. We figured let them blow. Blow up the internet for the next few weeks, and then we will inundate people beginning, you know, probably they'd be from the end of July all the way to OAX with announcements and shows and things. So lots of stuff in the news coming up for that. But I, you know, appreciate you supporting our first show. And
I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
All your time on CAF, even when you shunned it and didn't want to go to it.
It was so hard. It was I mean, to think that I love something so much that to look at it made me sad, made me miss the Sienkiewicz Moon Knight splashes, you know, things that were just, and still that I know were, at that moment, I knew they're beyond me. Once I kind of started looking again, I'm like, whoa. Those Mignola Rocket Raccoon pages, I'm not going to pick them up for $80 anymore. Things like
that. Mine for $80. I got mine for a lot more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're hard to come by now.
The hobby has changed, but I love it. I want to evolve with it. I want to grow with it. And I want to aid this next generation. I think it's important. And one of the things that I learned at OAX was sitting with younger collectors and learning some of the things they did not know. And it was rather astonishing. And I feel like, you know, all we have to do is show some things. But that same, you know, at the same table where a younger gentleman didn't know who Bernie Wrightson was, you know, I was able to introduce a 70-some-year-old man to the work of Jeremy Bastion, who immediately began Googling and knowing he's going to buy one.
Sure.
And it just, you know, so it's like there's this bridge where if we can connect the oldest to the youngest in the same place, which is what I think OAX is really going to do eventually.
Everybody work out for us, but yeah, of course, that's the mission.
Oh, you guys are great. That was awesome. I'm going to tell you, that was awesome. It really was. It was so overwhelming for me, but the event itself, it was ran well. It was organized well. It was top notch. I recommend it for everyone. If you haven't done it, go buy your tickets immediately.
Oh, they're going to hear that a lot in the next 6 months. But yes, I appreciate that.
No. Why wait? Plan now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're doing all right so far. We've, you know, we did a when we did the pre-sale announcement, we sold.
Right on.
Yeah. So no, we've got a good start. Definitely was very promising, but yeah, still a lot more work to do. But again, I appreciate you doing this with me this evening.
I appreciate you having me. This was my first video ever. So,
we'll see. Next time you do, it'll be like riding a bike.
It's not as long as Braveheart, but you know, I'm working on it. But I really appreciate it. And thanks for everybody that tuned in specifically. I really appreciate any and support, and Tim and Matt and Robert and all the guys I've seen over there that, you know, I've known for quite some time and that know the degree of my passion for this hobby.
That is very true. And Tim, I'm not sure what your question
is.
Dave. Yes, and Dave Kopecki, the man who told you to go big or go home.
Oh, I tell you what,
Dave's never given me that.
Never do a drinking interview, then we'll have some fun.
Yes, exactly. Well, again, thank you, William, and thank you everybody for hanging out with us this evening. It was totally a lot of fun, and yeah, we're going to see William again this upcoming January. I hope I see you there as well. It's going to be a good OAX 2025. But thanks again, man, and we'll see everybody again soon.
Like I say, don't be afraid to look up those guys you never heard of. Help them out. Give them a hand. All right.
All right. See you, everybody.